lessons from building a 400K business to 10 million. Welcome to Talent Talks, your go to podcast for insights into global recruitment and the power of finding the right talent. Brought to you by More Staffing. Whether you're an entrepreneur, an HR expert, or just keen on personal and professional growth, we're here to share valuable insights and stories. So, for today, we're going to be interviewing my co host, Lara, and how she grew a 400K business to 10 million, guys. But first and foremost, Lara, anything that you wanted to share?
Actually, yes. Before you start firing out questions, AC, what I would like to share to our listeners is how different and what sets us apart as an agency in more staffing is how we are understanding e-commerce businesses. I myself
Mm,
have worked for more than 3 years, 3 to 5 years growing DTC brands, e-commerce businesses, selling products or providing services before we even co-founded More Staffing. And that's actually where the experience came from. Like I was the first hire of Section 118 from the co-founders, Greg and Bob, who has been doing all the work. I understood that the role as a first team member is to make sure that I could duplicate what they're doing in supply chain business operations so that they can focus on growing the business. And that's actually fast forward to 2 years, we've grown 400K from 400K to 10M for this business. So understanding e-commerce is one of the major advantage that we have, and hopefully for this interview I can share insights to business owners, whether it's startups, small to medium sized businesses. But the lesson that we've gotten from this exercise of hiring remotely, a management or leadership position is hopefully going to be a huge support for you as well, especially in the
wonderful.
growth part.
Nice, nice. But how did it all start anyway?
So thanks to you, AC, for hiring us in Singularity University. That's where actually I met Greg. Um,
Okay.
and after Singularity University, when all of us are having our own path of businesses and work, I believe Greg asked you who can support and supply chain for his e-commerce business, and you referred me again to Greg Gary. And that's how we started discussing if I am the right fit. I shared with him my experience in human nature, our experience in supply
Mm,
chain, and how did we supported this brand from you working in the US and I am working in the Philippines, and we were teaming up on new product development. So that's where actually I he decided to hire me as the first employee. I started as a supply chain manager. The founder, the designer of Section 118, has been single-handedly doing the sourcing from China. So imagine it's US hours, but he has to stay late at night in making sure that he can communicate with the Chinese vendors before he log off. And that's the critical part of communication when dealing with vendors in China is that when you lose the opportunity to communicate in a day, you lose 24 hours or 12 hours because you have to wait
mm,
another day for them to respond. So actually that's the best support that I've given him the first 2 weeks of working for Section 119 is I captured all the communications with the vendors, and that's a huge advantage for talents working in the Philippines because we have the same time zone. And so while US is sleeping, I am communicating with vendors. I am doing the job, responsibilities of supply chain. And then when they are starting their work in the US, everything has been reported and finished. So that's how I helped Section 119, especially in the beginning. And a lot of succeeding tasks regarding business operations has followed that support.
So, how was it like building from you yourself in the first place to creating a team for Section 119?
It has been a quick journey, actually. I remember at third month, I already hired Liza. And on the fourth month, I already hired the third member. And by the end of 6 months, we're already four in the team. And I am very grateful that both founders have given me the autonomy to decide and to create a team, just like what you did with Singularity University. I understood that the tasks, though it's of course additional manpower costs for hiring new members, I believe that the work that we're doing with Section 118, how quickly we can develop new products, how efficient can we do the inventory planning, that's going to be a huge support in terms of growth and sales eventually.
Mm. But hiring from 4 to 6 people or 1 to 4 people, and then, if not mistaken, you guys grew to 16, right?
That's right.
How was it like? How was it like from the small team to now to a bigger team of 16? There's definitely a huge transition and culture, I would have to assume,
Mhm.
have happened.
This is a very memorable story in my career, especially it's the first, the second remote work client, but the first supply chain remote. And I believe what worked with the continuous growth of hiring is when I hired the next four members after me, it is the training part that helped them a lot. And it's like duplicating myself with the second hire duplicating herself with the third hire, and so on and so forth. It's a matter of providing whatever we can do in terms of technical training, of course, coming from supply chain in a traditional company is very different from handling e-commerce supply chain. So it's making sure that we have proper onboarding, we have training, unlearning sessions. Like there has to be an unlearning session wherein what are the supply chain tasks that we should unlearn so that we're more effective in e-commerce as compared to traditional. So it's not just all the time learning new things, but also first unlearning and then capturing what is going to be helpful for e-commerce. And coming from there, it's like building more leaders within the company. And so from there, from having four leaders at the time, we then started to hire our supports. So we started with the major positions, like I did supply chain management. We then hired a new product development lead, an overall chief of staff for the whole company, and at the same time, inventory planning. From those four leaders, we now have an expertise on the responsibilities and tasks that we should be doing for Section 118. We improved on inventory planning. We improved on the speed and timeline of new product development. Greg and Bob now have the chief of staff who will support them with the administration so they can focus on growing their brand. And at the same time, it's more of like making sure that we have support and dedicating time on what's going to matter, and then delegating the tasks to our supports. And then from very important positions like supply chain management, business operations, chief of staff, all the support of supply chain of like inventory planning and new product development. We then followed the hiring into graphic designers, customer service, controllers, and bookkeeper position. Basically, all of the positions that can be done remotely, we have it outsourced in the Philippines.
Nice. So, how many did you end up having again?
We have 16 Filipino team members and around four local members from the US.
Wonderful. So, what was the feeling when you guys hit your first million?
It's a combination of wins and pressure. Like, of course,
Mm,
we realized that it's possible. We realized that by hiring someone remotely, not only you can save cost on manpower, but you can hire a team instead of one person in the US. We realized that by working together, by being able actually for Section 119 to hire a lot of team members, our growth has been really, it's exponential. Like the first million happened within the first year. And it's very transformational that we have to make sure that we are picking up all of the best practices that we have and continue in developing it. And then what what have been the mistakes should be taken as learnings, or should have lessons. Of course, I specifically made different mistakes during my work in Section 118. It's like making sure that I was able to learn from it. There's a discussion with the team. What can be improved? What can we do to make sure that we we can learn from this, from those mistakes, and move forward with solutions.
Wonderful. So you have mentioned earlier that not only are there learnings, but there are also unlearning. Can you tell me more about that unlearning in supply chain?
This is so I've worked, just to give a quick background. I've worked in multinational companies before, for more than 12 years supply chain before I started working with Section 118. And those are huge brands like KFC, Tokyo, Mr. Donut, Human Nature, and with handling supply chain in those big brands and big companies, most of the time you have a team of five procurement officers, five planners, more than five logistics and warehousing personnel. Going to e-commerce, you have to do it on your own as the first
Mm,
employee. It's like supply chain management end to end, from ideation with the founder or the designer, to sourcing vendors, to asking for samples, testing the samples, getting revised samples, up to finalizing the product, PO or purchase order submission, monitoring that production, coordination with vendor and with third party quality checks, up to delivery, so via sea, via air shipments to US, up until receiving that product in our warehouse. All of those are going to be handled by one person, and that's the unlearning that we have to first unlearning that we have to do is make sure that we can do the actual steps on our own, rather than having like a team of people doing it for us. So if I am a supply
mm.
chain manager in a traditional work, I am doing the high level strategy and delegating the tasks to the team members. In doing it with e-commerce, I strategize and I do it myself. So that's the first adjustment that we have to do. At the same time, I would like to say that supply chain management in e-commerce is a lot simpler than working with traditional multinational companies. It's a lot simpler, but more coordination since you're working end to end. And all of the things that I have to improve in my working back then is like making sure that I am very organized with my tasks. As I've mentioned earlier, it's very important that I cascade information in Chinese hours to US hours so that I would save time. Every hour counts in terms of coordination. And also it's the communication and proactiveness that I should be always embodying when dealing with our communication with vendors and our co-founders, our designers and other team members. And that's something that I have to really improve on before
Mhm.
um you're in the office, you're going there 8 to 5, you have your team members with you, beside you, or in a different office. In this setup, you have to be very, what do you call this? You should be very productive in your meetings, in your Zoom calls, and very productive with your communication in your messenger like Slack or email. Data should always be recorded so that you can use it for future data analysis. And so those examples of improvement that I've learned from working from traditional company to e-commerce DTC brands.
Would you say that even though the e-commerce supply chain is easier, would you say that it's more difficult in terms of doing it because you have to wear multiple hats?
It's challenging for me, but personally I like doing it myself. So that's actually the if you remember, when we're still working together, I have the tendency to do everything myself, and that's because I wanted to make sure that the quality of work is um is actually there. But of course, I have to improve in delegating when we were growing as a team. I, as a supply chain practitioner who wants to do end to end, it has been a huge lesson for me to understand how should I be delegating the task to my team members when we are growing. So initially, I can do it as long as I have the project management tool. We were using Asana at that time. We have Slack, we have emails. I'm doing WeChat for communication with our Chinese vendors, sometimes Zoom
Mhm.
calls. And so making sure that those tools are tied up together. Asana or project management is always updated so that whenever I'm off or out, our team in the US can just open Asana and check the updates. And similarly, if they have tasks for me, if I am working and they're out, I just have to check those project management tools to understand what is the priority or urgency for the day. It was a lot of work, but personally, I enjoyed it. When I started hiring people and delegating tasks, that's when I have to embody the leadership mindset, delegating, making sure that I am very efficient and effective in giving out directions. Those are the things that I have been improving and continuously improving up to this point, is to give as much detailed information when delegating tasks, to give background, the goal of the task, so that the one that is going to help me or support me understands the task and can deliver properly.
Nice. That's very valuable. So, for somebody who is wanting to start their career in supply chain, what would be your recommendation or words of wisdom?
Is it coming from a traditional work to e-commerce?
Yeah, especially now that we are in the e-commerce business.
So my first advice is, I know probably you've been managing team in the traditional work. You have a lot of team members following you or supporting you. Working in e-commerce first is knowing and accepting that you'll do everything in the beginning. You can grow similarly to what has happened with Section 118, but in the beginning, for the first 6 months at least, you should understand that everything is going to be your responsibility. Creating processes, it's very important that you yourself know how to record data, where to record it, where to save it, so that you can use it efficiently when you have a team members joining you in your team. Second is get as much clients as you can. If it's full time, learning from one e-commerce DTC brand is going to be very helpful in your supply chain career. Even if it's just, for example, they're hiring procurement alone or inventory planning alone or logistics, try to experience the end-to-end of supply chain, because all of those are going to be very helpful in your growth as a supply chain expert. And I think I hope that you can find a team that you can have a mastermind on. Like for me, we have like a group of 15 supply chain managers that we religiously connect with, like calls, messages, so that we can share best practices, share vendors, share third party couriers or logistics partner, warehouses. It's better to work together than to work alone. A lot of supply chain managers have been in the supporting of e-commerce industry for more than 5 to 10 years at this point. So being able to being mentored by those experts is going to be a huge value for your career.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you, Lara, for your time today. And thank you, listeners, for tuning into Talent Talks. Stay subscribed for more insights and stories from the dynamic world of recruitment and talent management. Here's to learning, growing, and thriving together in the world of remote work. Until next time!
All right, thank you.